Hey everybody, welcome to another video here on the Blue Abroad YouTube channel. I've got the Pom with me as always for a lot of reasons, but none more important than when we're talking about list management and list spots. And I think one of the key questions coming up in this preseason is who is going to get that last list spot. Now, I know we've got a couple of train-on players, so what we're going to do today, or what Pom's going to do today, is go through 5 of the core names that are up for potential selection for that last spot, give us a bit of a rundown as to what their situation is. And obviously, we've seen them a couple of times at the 2 open training sessions that we've been at, and then we'll try and predict who we're actually going to take. So, Pom, why don't we start with Will Hayes?
Will Hayes, the legend that is, obviously just been delisted by the Doggies, one of their many next-gen type players that they had claims on. Didn't quite set, he came out of the blocks hard, didn't he, Will Hayes, for the Doggies? And then it just kind of never kicked on, really. That first year he was there was a lot of promise. He was a super coach legend. Just the 2 games in 2020, and he's kind of gone back down to the VFL, probably looking at the VFL level to come back in. My issue with Will Hayes is he's kind of like a 5 out of 10 all across the board. He hasn't got anything that you like kind of hang your hat on and say, this is what he'll change the game with. And I have to say, I was disappointed in training. He didn't, to me, look like a kid having potentially his last bite at the AFL cherry.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what he is or what we would use him for, personally.
Well, I mean, like his main traits were meant to be, and you saw it in his first year at the Doggies, his ability to find the ball. We can work inside and out. That was the kind of, it was played as that. Like if you look at the midfield at the Doggies, 16 touches coming off half forward and the wing. He was in and around the goals as well, just under half a goal a game. It's, for me, we've got a lot of Will Hayeses on our list. We have a lot of Will Hayeses already where you nailed it. Who are you? What are you? Like I'm not a big fan. I think it'd be great for VFL and dangle that carrot if he can improve them games. But for me, he still doesn't have enough je ne sais quoi for me to say, yeah, pick him up.
Je ne sais quoi?
Yeah, we got
like
multinational here.
Bringing something else to the table other than list management. Look at you go.
Yeah, I listened in year 9 French.
Love it. Okay, let's go to the next one. Ned Cahill. This is actually one that showed a little bit in session 1, not so much in session 2. But what do you think about him?
Well, I mean, I'd say that if Carlton fans drafted up a player that we need, Ned Cahill fits it. Just that genuine pocket forward. That is literally his bread and butter. He's small, he's crafty, 178. Probably something that we don't have in the terms of where you look at Will Hayes. We said we have a lot of that type of player. Ned Cahill was probably a commodity at Carlton. There isn't many of them, and we're waiting for that. We're waiting for them to break out. And Cahill's obviously got AFL experience. For me, and my one worry is one of his highlights in his junior year. And when you're looking at small forwards, they're always flashing the pan in juniors. They'll go like 2 games and they'll average 5 goals, and then they'll have 4 games with nothing. And you kind of just accept that as standard. Ned was the exception. He was consistent. And I found them 6 games, albeit a small selection size, for Essendon, who do play a manic forward pressure. He didn't really stand out and bring what he brought in juniors. He kind of looked a bit lost. And in the training session, I know you said the first one he had moments. I found he just meandered in the match sim, in the one that I went to. And he's probably perfect for Carlton in the terms of he does the job that we probably don't have a lot of depth in. But I didn't see enough for me that screamed, I need an AFL contract.
Yeah. Well, I think we might touch on this a little later, but my perception of this spot would be you either, if it's someone that's a little older, so, 23, 24 with some AFL experience, you probably want someone that you're confident is going to be able to impact and get into the side, or just be on the fringe. Otherwise, you just go for a youngster, and I guess that's probably a good segue into this next one. This one's my favorite personally. Tyrese Leu. He's got the Samoan background, and shout out to his dad Max, who I met at the end of the second training session.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love this kid, and he stood out. The bucket heart.
Yep.
For me, what excited me the most is when he got beat in contests. He acted like a kid that has an AFL carrot in front of him. He was running hard. He was trying to repair the damage. He fit into that ethos of what I would say if I was the coach, I need more of players that are willing to not back down and give it a go and keep going. Eastern Ranges boy as well. He showed he's what his strengths are as well. I thought in training, his ability overhead. He's using his size. I thought he competed well with a lot of bigger bodies. And also just his willingness to do the tough stuff was the big standout at Eastern Rangers. He gets his hands dirty. He's that hybrid, big-bodied midfielder. I love using that phrase because that is Carlton.
That
is Carlton's hang their hat on, the big-bodied mid. But I mean, big-bodied mid, but he also plays down the back as well. Ironically, for Eastern Rangers, his role was the Setterfield role that, Teague just made up out of thin air, having a defensive half-back flank. That was his role for Eastern Rangers. So maybe a year too late for Tyrese, because if David Teague was here, he'd probably cry. He'd be like, oh, my God, there is a player that I want. But I thought he stood out, and I thought he looked, for me, someone that you can invest in, and he's going to pay you back.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I didn't realize how old he was, because when I saw him, he's pretty thick and he's pretty strong, and he doesn't look like a teenager out there, but he's still very young.
He's only a bubba. Probably unlucky not to be drafted as well.
Why didn't he get drafted? What happens there? Why didn't he get drafted?
Oh, I mean, I think in a league that is obsessed with the S word, speed, that could be it. I had him going very late. If he did, I thought he would be like a late third rounder thereafter, someone looking to complement their list. He does play that niche role though, so we take the piss out of David Teague having that Will Setterfield role, but there is a lot of players in the league that do that role, and it is becoming, I think, kind of a modern day role. It's kind of like the 90s and the Italians with their obsession with sweepers in defence. It's very similar to that role. So I think Tyrese, though, for me, showed a lot of the signs. And they say his durability and his speed was the issue. They're the things that you can learn. Look at Harry. Harry wasn't that quick. Like, Harry was running around like Usain Bolt at times. So under the right guidance, I think Voss would like this player because he personifies some Voss techniques of that never give up, that doing the tough stuff first, doing the team first. And I really liked him.
Yeah, well, I think the word that Voss uses is not the S word, it's the P word, powerful. So if that's the case, I think Tyrese could be one that fits the bill. The next one is a former Carlton listed player, Jesse Glass McCusker. What's the story here?
Well, I mean, we're going back in time, aren't we? We're going back in time. We've been that bad so long, we're recycling our bad draft picks. It's solid. Well, I mean, what can you say? I mean, to be fair to him, like we're being harsh on him, but he has, to be fair, gone back, done the VFL thing, and I wouldn't say stood out, but he's definitely improved and he's reliable. He's been playing that solid role down the back. He had a bit of time at Footscray. He's on their books. He was in Swans Districts League as well for a bit. For me, I don't know about this one. I was watching him and it looks like they've kept their options open if Young bombs, if McDonald bombs. I'm not a fan because what I saw out there, I'm pretty sure Lewis Young could do. I'm pretty sure Mitch McGovern could do. I like it round the VFL list. I think it's a good story for the boys. Former Carlton player didn't quite make it. Probably he could argue he was unlucky, because it was pre the time we just gave game time to anyone who was 18. But I'm not a big... I wasn't impressed, let's put it that. I think if they were looking at state league players, there was probably 32 ahead of him, just off the top of my head. So I don't know why they've done it. I don't know if it's a VFL thing. But I thought Oscar McDonald, I know he's become your favourite. I think he's head and shoulders above where Jesse is.
Yeah, and I get the idea of having him as an option, but it kind of goes... And also he's been in the AFL system. Whether it was successful or not is another thing, but he's been there. He's done pre-seasons, obviously familiar with the club. Does he bleed blue? Maybe. I know that's an important one for us. But yeah, I'm also with you. I'm just not sure. Speaking of bleeding blue and picking people based on their surnames, we had to leave the most popular name till last. So Josh Criss. This is actually a bit more relevant today than what it was last week. So talk to us about Criss.
Oh dear. Well, I mean, I hate to do this because I had Henry Walsh and I said he wasn't good enough and upset people. And Josh Criss, I just can't help feel that if Josh was named Josh Williams, people would be like, why is he there? I don't mean it in a horrible way. I think for me, there is something there. But for a football club like us, we have a lot of players like this that there's something there, like without adding another one. Yes, he has got some good skills. I mean, he's very good aerially, like you'd expect his brother. He has got a good engine as well. He tries, and he has got a bit of goal sense, which he demonstrated towards the back end of last year. But I just don't get it. I think for me, when he was in training, you saw what I'm saying. He isn't quite there physicality-wise, and he's definitely the kind of player that doesn't have enough something to say, right, let's just waste a spot on the list. Obviously, people are going to say, oh, well, TDK has had a bit of an injury and Josh has walked into a ruck a couple of times. There's the issue. If we're not having TDK and Pitternet goes down and you're going into AFL games with Murkoff and Josh Criss, you're getting battered. Do you know what I mean? It's simple. So for me, I like Josh Criss on the VFL list. He's got some rawness about him. See how he develops in the next best league. But I feel like he's 5-6 years, if at all, from playing AFL. And that's just my honest assessment. And I'm the opposite of everyone else. I'm harsh on him because he is a Crips. I'm not willing to put him on the list purely because he's a Crips.
Yeah, fair enough. I think... I've watched him twice now in person at the 2 training sessions. I feel like if he were to be on the list, it would be him or Murkoff. Murkoff seems to be this project ruckman, not necessarily ready for AFL footy just yet, but maybe someone that will be because he's got some raw talent, something. He's obviously got plenty of athleticism. I just don't know about having both Criss, Josh Criss, that is, and Murkoff. Even though TDK has had this minor procedure, as it's been explained, to get a blood clot removed from his shoulder, and whether that affects his availability for round 1 and the early parts of the season, I'm not sure yet. I'm just not convinced yet. And like I said before, if we're going to pick someone to fill this spot, you either go someone who can slot in and play, or can actually impact. And in that case, it may be like a Ned Cahill, who has been at the level, and to a lesser extent, Will Hayes. Or you go for, a younger player who's still, really raw, really young. I'm not sure how old Josh Criss is, but I don't know. There's something about Leu that's just got my attention.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he would be, if I was picking it, he's definitely someone I'd pick. I mean, with Josh Criss, I think his biggest negative is his mobility. He isn't the modern day 195 plus player. You look at the 195 plus players now, they're all mobile. Like Harry was an exception when he came through the draft. Now everyone's like that. Like, do you know what I mean? Max King, Ben King, Jack Lacocious, they're all versatile. For me, Josh Criss is a throwback to the 90s of his big seize ball, smarts ball. Nowadays, that don't cut it. Where I like Tyrese. I think there's something about him. I agree with you. I think his versatility, his ability to play across 2 lines helps him out. It's something that Carlton can look to build towards and have that in the wings almost. But that physicality, you can't teach that. That's something that we talk about for 2 years on this show. People don't look like they want to be physical. Tyrese does, and the Samoan, that's in the Samoan blood. They don't back down. You've only got to see that in rugby. They don't back down. That no challenge is too big for them. So I really like Tyrese, and I thought he had a really good energy as well. Just watching him interact with the players, he had a real good energy, which I think we probably lack at the club. We want someone who's got that. Come on, lads, this is pretty good, man. Like, we're playing football. Like, it's not really a job, is it? And he had that. He rubbed that, seemed to personify from him that this is a work, but we're also pretty privileged to do this for a job.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. I'm not exactly sure when this announcement gets made, but for those of you following at home and those of you who have been to the open training sessions, let us know if any of these 5 have stood out. I know there are a couple more that have been training, but these are the 5 that, Pom and I believe are, one of the spots will come from. So let us know if you have any thoughts on any of them or if you have any thoughts on any other players, and we'll go from there.